Arkansas is a Second Amendment state. We are a constitutional carry state, but that wasn't always the case. Do you remember? I mean, because I remember growing up in the 90s where it was assumed, and I don't even really know how they did this psychologically, but it was just assumed that if you wanted to carry a weapon for personal protection, that you had to go to the state and you had to get a permission slip. This happened sometime in the 90s, that in order to carry a weapon, you had to have a concealed carry permit, if you will. Now, that all changed in 2013 with the passage of Act 746, which decriminalized the possession of a firearm to the point where you didn't have to have a permit to carry concealed or open, by the way, giving us constitutional carry, restoring the freedoms of Arkansans all across this state to exercise their Second Amendment rights. I mean, it really was a beautiful thing. But we did have, and correct me if I'm wrong, we did have, a couple of decades where psychologically the law enforcement agencies didn't think that you could carry without a permission slip. They certainly didn't think you could open carry. And so there was a disconnect. The law was changed because of, editing a word here or adding a word there. And it was signed by a Democrat governor, Mike Beebe, who didn't know what he was signing, by the way, which again is still, that kind of ignorance is bliss, and it worked out to the benefit and to the freedoms of Arkansans everywhere. But here we are. We still have, and we've gotten over this. This has been a long progression. The gun owners of Arkansas have done a really good job of getting the word out, working with law enforcement agencies who want to listen, telling them what the law now says, telling them that people have their Second Amendment freedoms back here in the state of Arkansas. But there is still a little bit of a lag, if you will. For the longest time, you couldn't get the state police to admit what the law was. People would beg, give us an attorney general opinion, please. Address this issue. This is what the law says. We have court precedents essentially confirming what the law says, refusing to prosecute, refusing for charges to go forward from prosecutors who didn't know it. There was prosecutors who didn't know what they were doing, prosecutors who were disconnected from all of this. But then when it came to time to go to trial, they looked at the law and they said, well, wait a second. Wait a second. We can't get a conviction based on the burden of proof. That is really, really high on the state. They have to be able to prove that you have the weapon and you're going somewhere to commit a crime with that weapon, which is a very, very high bar for the state to meet. So anyway, that is the state of Arkansas law, but there are still law enforcement agencies who are kind of lagging behind, or maybe to say it a little bit more charitably, there are bureaucratic agencies like the Arkansas Game and Fish whose rules and regulations do not conform or match Arkansas state law when it comes to gun rights. Okay? And again, I think this is because, the government is really slow to admit change, especially when it was a people's movement that changed the law to begin with to get this restoration of our gun rights here in Arkansas. And so the gun owners of Arkansas had a Facebook post a couple of weeks ago. This was about a hearing that took place almost 2 weeks ago, and it caught my eye. I'm going to put it up on the screen for you right now. There you see it. And so here it is, gun owners of Arkansas. You see this sign here. This is what is of issue. This is Lake Pickthorn. It's a public fishing lake. And if you read this Facebook post here from Gun Owners of Arkansas, they write, several months ago, a member posted a picture of a sign on a game and fish lake that said no loaded firearms. And there you see it right there, loaded firearms prohibited. Okay. So yesterday in our committee meeting, legislators brought this to the attention of Director of Arkansas Game and Fish, Austin Booth, who naturally wasn't aware of it and tried to justify the restrictions. He stated that they were put in place to protect wildlife, and this is on the record. We're going to go to the clip here in just a minute. Think about that. I'm not sure how each of you perceives that, but to us, it says that the Arkansas Game and Fish puts protecting wildlife over human life. Gun Owners of Arkansas has identified 5 different game and fish rules that are inconsistent with state law, which weren't discussed in this committee meeting. But from our understanding, it will come back up again. And matter of fact, from my understanding, by the way, ever since this Facebook post went out from Gun Owners of Arkansas and this committee hearing took place. And, and Austin Booth, he answered the questions from Senator Terry Rice. Again, we're going to get to that here in a minute. My understanding is that the Game and Fish wants to remedy this. They do want the rules and regulations of the Arkansas Game and Fish to conform to Arkansas gun rights, Arkansas gun law. Just the law is all we really need to say. And so why wouldn't you want that to happen? Of course, you want a state agency to conform with what the law says when it comes to how they're going to treat hunters and that sort of thing, or really anybody. But so I do want to say that there's been a lot of stuff that's happened since this Facebook post was made. But the reason I'm covering it here is because I want you to know what's going on in government and in state government, and I want you to know how this is a rare example, and maybe more frequent the more focus we get on local control. But it's good to see, citizens bringing something to the attention of a legislator, in this case a state senator, the state senator bringing it to the attention of an agency head, and then the agency head are going to try to do something about this. I mean, we can't have loaded firearms prohibited on a sign at a state fishing, a public fishing lake, when in fact the law does not prohibit loaded firearms. Okay, I think we can all agree there. The law actually gives you the freedom to protect yourself, right? And so it's good from at least from what I'm hearing for now. They want to fix this, okay, and that's good, because for the longest time it took forever to get some of these agencies to actually admit what the law is. Constitutional carry in Arkansas is real. And anyway, so let's continue with the Facebook post, shall we? Again, keep that in mind, though. I visited with Director Booth after the committee meeting, gave him my contact info to discuss these issues, and he said he didn't have a fuzzy feeling. But again, that's different than what I'm being told now. Again, this post was made on July the 18th. So we do have proposed legislation that will address these issues despite their power under the Arkansas Constitution, and it's receiving a lot of support across the state from key law enforcement, prosecutors, and lawmakers. So as of now, we do hope Director Booth takes steps to address these rules that are inconsistent with state law, and that's the point, okay? Are you going to take steps to address the fact that this is inconsistent with state law? And again, I'm told the good news is they are in fact. But let's go ahead and listen to some of this audio, okay, from a couple of weeks ago. Here is Senator Terry Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Director Booth, for being here today. One of the questions I may have mentioned we visited on the phone and referring to Act 777, which is going in, which is just clarifications already we consider law, but I hope you feel like it's been a good discussion today to hear different parties. I mean, to me, it's just healthy. One thing that somebody had sent to me previously is a picture of Lake Pickthorn. I don't even know where that's at. Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, funded by 8-cent sales tax, loaded firearms prohibited. Are you aware of what areas you have that you have loaded firearms prohibited up at public sites?
No, sir, not off the top of my head.
I don't have a date. This was
all right. But I would be more than happy to look into it and report back to the committee.
And you see where that could be a conflict with what we're saying the law is. And then had one brought to me by a retired respected public official that I wasn't familiar with before I left earlier this morning, because I mentioned we were having committee meetings. He said, I've got a question. I said, well, I'll be glad to ask you. When you're carrying a personal firearm, a pistol, if you're doing it during hunting season, it says, and he before I was pulling out of the parking lot, and he went and got me a new rule book and brought back to me. I said, a new one's 22-23, and showed me the caliber that it had. And his question was, if he's not hunting during hunting season, he doesn't have required vest, colors, but he's driving down one of the many rural roads that we have, county roads we have, and he has a caliber in there of any type, is he going to get a ticket for having a loaded firearm driving down the road through one of the places that you're saying is not supposed to, or is he going to get a ticket for hunting without his colors on? Or there's a conflict here. I'm not saying anybody got a ticket, but there are conflicts in that. So if you've got anything you can address on that.
Sure, yes, sir.
Okay, so again, what he's saying is that there are conflicts with Arkansas state law and Arkansas Game and Fish rules and regulations. Okay, so let's hear Director Austin Booth's answer, shall we?
One of the ways that we have tried to ensure that our rules for wildlife management areas, also public waters, which I would like to get with you afterwards, sir, to hear what that lake is, to make sure that our access rules remain reflective of what the law is changing around this area, is to say very clearly in our regs that people that are on our wildlife management areas and on our waters are allowed to carry a weapon for personal protection. Right? The reason we put those qualifiers in there is because there's often an incentive for people to carry a weapon that they could use outside of hunting season for some other purpose than personal protection. So the way that our regs are written right now, it would be up to the discretion of our game warden whether they were exercising their Second Amendment rights and their rights under Arkansas law, or whether they were in fact trying to violate the law and actually use that weapon for some kind of criminal intent.
And just state, I want anybody that's illegally hunting, I'm all for you getting them. And I think I've told you this, I don't get a fraction of feedback of negative comments that I got a few years ago. And I compliment the Game and Fish. It may not satisfy everybody, but I think there's been.
All right, so that was Senator Terry Rice, and he's saying at the end there, I don't get a fraction of the complaints from the Arkansas Game and Fish that I used to. Arkansas Game and Fish, is just notorious for, I don't know, they may not like this characterization, but it's the elephant in the room. People feel harassed by the Arkansas Game and Fish, and at the same time, yes, there are people out there who are breaking the law, who are poaching, who are hunting illegally, and that sort of thing. And just because that happens, just because there's that, temporary evil, that doesn't mean the rest of us should have to suffer because of it. Now, a lot of the reason why the Arkansas Game and Fish may be harassing people less, or that's just how we all feel. Let's be honest. Is because of the Pickle. What was that guy's name? It was Pickle versus the state of Arkansas, where basically they reestablished the Fourth Amendment, where the Arkansas Game and Fish can't. There's a court case saying you can't just ask for somebody their papers just because they are out, hunting somewhere. They have to be doing something wrong. You can't just shake them down, which was, I don't care what they say, that was a huge blow to the authority, I think unconstitutional authority, of the Arkansas Game and Fish when it comes to, being able to just, come up on somebody and demand to show me, papers, please, that sort of thing. Now, at the same time, later in this hearing, the chairman of this committee, the Game and Fish / State Police, Arkansas, it's a subcommittee. Chairman of the subcommittee is State Representative Josh Miller. Now, Josh Miller says, when it comes to this discretion that the Arkansas Game and Fish has, it's one thing if somebody's, got a loaded firearm, a weapon, let's say a pistol, on their hip for personal protection, versus coming up on somebody who's got a loaded rifle in the middle of the night with a spotlight, looking over a field of deer. So that's pretty black and white, blatant. But again, I kind of come back to, but if they're not, but have they taken the shot yet? Have they taken the shot and actually hunted illegally yet? See, that would kind of be where I would fall down. Has the crime actually been committed? See, this is the gray area. It's like a Minority Report type gray area where you get into this. We're predicting where we want to have some sort of a predictive format to prevent crimes that haven't even happened yet, and that's an issue. So I would say anytime you are a law enforcement agency and you've got what the law says, and then you say, yeah, but we're going to leave it up to the discretion of the officer. I think even for the officer's protection, the officers should have a problem with that. I mean, they just need to be able to rely on, well, this is what the law says, you broke it, and so you're going to jail or you're getting fined or whatever, getting your ticket, versus, well, I didn't have a cup of coffee this morning, and I don't know, I think that, I'm going to go ahead and give you a ticket, right? That's the danger there, and I know that may be an extreme case, but it's still the danger. Anyway, kudos. I'm sorry, I find this a really good exercise in how we can make these state agencies be held accountable, because, again, I can report to you that a lot of this is being addressed. I'm told there is good movement on this, and that people who work for the Arkansas Game and Fish, the Director Booth there, they want to make this right. They do want regulations, at least from what I'm told now. Now, this could change, and if it does, we'll tell you. But the idea of regulations, rules, and regs matching Arkansas state law, they think is a good thing. We think it's a good thing. Again, the reason there is a difference is because of a lag. There has been this slow trek from this psychological mentality that we've got to have a permission slip in order to exercise our Second Amendment rights. We got to check in with Mother Government. We've got to make sure that they're okay with us having a gun, versus now where, no, you have freedom and you have the Second Amendment, and the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And if you're in the state of Arkansas, you don't need a permit to carry concealed. You don't need a permit to carry openly right here in Arkansas.